Okay, so, well, I guess thank you for joining me. For those that don't know, I'm joined by the lovely Rebecca Rinehart. Okay, so last year you agreed to do this, and I think the first question is why join again?
Um, so just basically why just am I still in horror and still here?
Or why agree to do a second interview?
Because you're a good guy and you've supported a lot of the projects that I do and other people's projects too. You're a good dude. Come on, of course I'm gonna say yes to nanners.
Yeah, so we'll let that slide for now. But I mean, I do agree. I love that nickname. It's so fun, and I love the backstory behind it. So, but yeah, so last year you started work on Embalmers, which was your first directorial film. What was the experience like?
uh Hellish, rewarding, all the things that you might think. I was pretty much a one-woman show when it comes down to it. So from crowdfunding to directing to any low budget movie, you're gonna have to wear 1,000 hats anyway, and I had to wear about 2,000 hats. And now in post production, I've done all the editing, and I am the one who is getting everything set up for the backers. So I'm now I've got my living room is packed with boxes and things, about 140 packages I'm going to send out to backers as soon as I get the DVDs. Um, so it's been a really long process, but it's been rewarding because I learned so much. And in the editing process, sitting there and watching different things and going, face palm, just, so Rob Mello, who was in the movie, he was here while I was editing a lot of the times, and he's like, we can make just this little outtake reel. It'd probably be longer than the movie of you going, oh, while editing. Like, there's so many times I'm just like, really? um, and so is it ideally like what I want it to be? No, but it's my first movie, and hey, you know what? Goddamn, I made a movie. um, and I learned a lot of things, and I'm gonna take those with me and take those to my next one, Tin Roof.
Cool. So since it was your first film, and given the state of the world at the time, did that add any extra stress to directing, or?
Okay, so funny story. So my sister and I wrote it. Rob co-wrote it with us. We did a teaser. So I paid for it out of my pocket. I brought several of our core cast up here. We rented the house that we ended up filming in, and we shot like the first 7 minutes of it. So that we had something for the Indiegogo. We had a really good community built up. We had all like the steam and all the right things in place. And then we started on it was March 13th because it was a Friday the 13th. And I'm like, I'm a huge Jason girl. So I'm like, Friday the 13th, come on, that's awesome, right? Started, we had like a great first day. Like, we made probably $3,000 in the first day. And that next day, well, it was 2 days later, Sunday, started coming across the news wire, like, all restaurants will be closing, blah, blah, blah.
I remember, yeah,
Like,
you were one of the. I remember, yeah, because you were one of the first ones that I remember. It was just like you were hit by it, because there
oh
was
my
you,
God,
because there
yes,
was you
2 days.
guys, yeah, because there was you guys, and then there was one other one that went live. I think it
There was
went live.
one that it went live before we did. I can't remember
Yeah,
which one
because
that was.
there was one
But
that went live that week, and then there was one that, and then you went live the Friday, and then like Sunday,
yes,
everything.
the world closed on
Yeah,
Monday. Yes.
yeah, because I remember
So
that.
it was
Yeah,
it was very challenging. So we didn't get the money that we asked for to start with. People were very like gracious, but I mean, at that point in time, especially, there were a lot of people who didn't have jobs. Like, instantly, like, oh, Monday, you don't have a job,
yeah.
So that hurt everybody, but yes, it did hurt us. So we didn't make our goal. But I wasn't going to let that, stop me anyway. I already was a couple grand in the hole from it. So I'm like, yeah, keep going. And then I actually in April and May, so I have an OnlyFans page. And in April and May, I was like, okay, I'm going to give every dollar that I make on OnlyFans, I'm going to put that directly to the movie, which was kind of like lame to say anyway, because every dollar I was making was going to the movie no matter what. But then it was like some immediate gratification. So I made probably about $2,500 in those two months for people who, like, I had a lot of people too who were just like, I don't really care to see your boobs, but I want to support you, and I can afford $10, So, so we got a fairly decent amount. It was a little touch and go by the time we were filming in September, because it was like COVID wasn't, it was kind of in a little bit of a stasis at that point in time. And so we managed to get everybody here. We had protocols on set, we had boxes of masks and hand sanitizer, and we bought, I'm still trying to get rid of all the paper plates that we bought, because we got all like disposable utensils, paper plates, everything. Just like hundreds and hundreds of them, and, water bottles, and all that did increase our cost as well. But I mean, we still managed to get it shot. And then, like I said, afterwards, I did all the editing. I was on a sabbatical from work during all of this. And so I pretty much had about a month where it was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back to work. I'm gonna get this movie edited. So I pretty much just hunkered down at my kitchen table with my computer and edited it. But we've since things have gotten a little better, we have since done finishing funds Indiegogo, and we've recouped a little bit of that money. So nobody gets into this to make money. You just hope to break even.
Yeah. So working as an actress beforehand, did that make it a little easier knowing that you were able to have some experience to draw on?
Yes. So the way that I even got into acting in movies, I'm not an actress at all. It's never been even an inkling and thought, but I started out as a podcaster, a YouTuber, and I'm a fan. First and foremost, I am a horror fan, and I love everything horror. And I started interviewing filmmakers for my channel and my podcast. And after just a little while, just kind of talking to some of these independent filmmakers, I was like, I can do this. Like, it didn't seem like incredibly taxing, but I'm like, I didn't really know the ins and outs. And I think it was Tim Ritter was the first director that I interviewed who was like, hey, come on, I'm putting you in one of my movies. We're going to shoot this, we're going to do this interview, and then we're going to shoot this goofy ass alien dream sequence thing for a short. And I was like, oh, okay, fun, And then once Tim put me in something, then like Donald Farmer, like that whole little gang of like, the SOV Legends guys, then they're all like, then Donald Farmer's like, well, you want to be in Debbie Does Demons, and it just kind of spiraled from that, like, because I did have a little bit of a fan base too. I think, these are movies where the acting quality isn't necessarily what people think about. It's kind of the draw, and I already had some fans and whatever. And these guys liked me. So I've auditioned for Carousel the Second. So, and I auditioned for another movie that's shelved right now, The True Tale of Splitfoot versus the Lesbian Warriors of the Great White North. I think those are the only two that I've actually auditioned for. Everything else has just been, somebody's just been, hey, do you want to be in my movie? And so since I was off work, and I should have warned you, I'm a talker. I'm a horrible talker.
Oh, go for it.
Since I was off work, like if the person was legit, I was like, yes, I'll do it, because I wanted to get as much time on as many different sets as I could and see how each person did their own thing. I was on sets from, it's just one guy and a camera, to like, sets with an entire crew and like an effects crew, and and getting blood sprayed all over me and stuff, by like professionals. So it was really cool just to get all that experience, but I did it mostly just to get in and soak everything up. So so I kind of just melded all those experiences together to what my situation was with the Embalmers and what my budget, and my style and all that stuff was.
So, speaking of Tim Ritter and Sharks of the Corn.
Yes.
What, since you mentioned that you did the short for him, how did go from there to working with him as a full-length feature?
So just for background, so when I was a kid, when I was an adolescent and a teenager, and this was the 80s, late 80s to a little bit of the early 90s. I was a video store rat. All I did was rent movies. And I had one video store where the guy who owned it loved horror, and he got every horror movie that came out, good, bad, indifferent. He got a lot of old stuff. And I would just rent everything, and I would go into the video store, and like, you know how it was, like I rented I should have warned you, my internet has been flaky, so I'm just going to do this off the data. And in fact, my work computer just freaked out too. It's really fun to try to be an IT, work at home IT professional when your internet won't stay up.
Yeah, mine too.
All right. Yeah. Are you still recording?
Yeah, I just took
out. Sorry, edit point.
Yeah, I just took that out. Yeah, I'll fix it.
Okay. So the movies that I liked the best, that I still watched, I still love, were the low budget ones. And Tim Ritter's movies, like Truth or Dare, Wicked Games, like I loved those movies. And so I found some other people, specifically my friend Slade Shepard, who was overshot on video movies, and how, he had kind of rediscovered all these movies, Redneck Zombies and Witchburn Massacre, and all these movies I hadn't seen for 20 years. And we started a podcast, SOBs Who Love SOV, which I still do. And so I hit up Tim Ritter, because he was my friend on Facebook. And he's like, yeah, come to my house. Come down, he lives in Kentucky. He lives about 5 hours away from me. Come to my house, spend the weekend. We'll shoot some stuff and hang out. Meet Kathy and Shannon and everything. And I was like, really? And so I'm like sitting on like Tim Ritter's porch, and I even said to him, I'm like, if 14-year-old me knew that I'd be sitting on the porch with the director of one of the movies, like a bunch of the movies that I was renting, I would have told you were crazy. And it's like, these are people who are not famous to like the general public, but they're rock stars to me. And he has become a great mentor. He has given me so much advice. He has given me so many chances to do things with him. So, and he's always willing to like let me bounce ideas off of him and whatnot. So how Sharks of the Corn came about was I was going to Lexington. It was last, I don't know, maybe October, September. I'm not sure when. It may have been a little bit later. But I was going there to do, he wanted to do a Jess Franco homage. And so he wanted to know if I would do like a sequence that was an homage to Countess Perverse. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, And then he was like, and then right after he asked me that, I was going to go there on that Saturday or whatever. He's like, hey, Ron Bonk just called me, and he wants to know if I want to do a movie called Corn Sharks. And I get the concept. He's going to give me a little bit of money. He's like, you want to stay another day and do something for corn sharks? And I'm like, well, fuck yes. Like, what girl isn't going to say yes to that? So there was no script, no story. All he had, it was kind of like a, you know, Ron did like a kind of Roger Corman type thing where he picked 2, 3, I think maybe 3 directors. I know Mark Polonia was another one, where he just gave them a name and like a certain amount of money and said, you do whatever you want, but this is what I want. He gave them all shark type movies. So I think Irish Shark is Mark Polonia's, and there's like Shark with a Chainsaw, I think is another one. It's coming out on SRS. And so when I was there, like Tim had no idea what he was going to do with the movie. He had some ideas. And so it was all ad-libbed between me and my Corn King boyfriend, Jason Boyd. But he just kept throwing stuff out. He's like, okay, start talking about like how they're like alien hormone rays, or how you've heard about there's Bigfoot out here, or blah, blah, blah. Like he had like a million things that may or may not have ended up in the movie. He's just like, I want you guys to talk about all these things, and then he's going to piece them together. So we had no idea. And in fact, the movie became a completely different title, Sharks of the Corn. So he decided to learn. But my part is basically it's an homage / parody / I don't know what to the opening scene of Jaws. So where the girl, Susan, which is my character's name as well, decides to go skinny dipping, can't get her boyfriend to go, and ends up getting killed. So instead, I'm doing striptease through a cornfield when I run across a shark. It was fun.
Yeah. So what are some of the other films that you've been able to shoot that are either close to being done or just about ready to come out?
So Backwoods Bubba, I actually co-wrote that with Brad Thomason. That is going to be, I think it's going to be a surprisingly fantastic movie. Brad's really talented. He has a really good eye for things. And the script, I mean, he had a really great story with the Bubba concept, but I was kind of like, the people just talk, like they just kept having the same conversations. They were really like two-dimensional. I'm like, can I like put some story into it? And he's like, yeah. And so I pretty much rewrote all like the dialogue part and all the backstories and people's personalities. I'm not saying I'm great or anything, but I mean, it ended up being well-rounded. We have the most talented group of people. We've got Julian Prescott, Alice Winkler, Dylan Harvey, Sammy Castle, who is Bubba, he is awesome guy. He's a great villain, but he's just an awesome guy, as many villains tend to be. So we had a great time, and it went really well. I think it's going to turn out really well. And I think he just did another movie called Martian Massacre. And I think his plan is to release them both at the same time this summer and try to do a premiere to drive-in in Virginia. So hopefully that works out, because that'll be really cool.
Nice.
Of course, the Embalmers. I'm in the Embalmers briefly. Now I'm drawing a complete blank. Shriek-Show. I did Shriek-Show for Brad Twigg, which is in post-production. So my part's long done. But that one's going to be pretty cool, and it should be out, I'd say, fairly soon.
Okay,
and again, I'm drawing a blank. I've done too many things this past year.
Well, hey, at least you're busy. So, yeah. So you mentioned earlier about Tin Roof with Tim Mello. What can you provide us about that?
So after we filmed the Embalmers, so Rob Mello was in my film, The Embalmers. You won't see his name in the credits for reasons. But we got a really good kinship when we were writing the movie and then filming or whatever. And for whatever reason, he like took to me as a director. I don't know. I'm like, whatever. So when we were done filming, we came back to my house and we were just bullshitting. He's like, what's the next thing you want to do? And I was like, bucket list, I got to do a camp slasher. Like that's my jam, you know, because I'm like Jason's girl all the way. But I had a thought that I wanted to do a slasher, a camp slasher, but I also wanted to kind of flip things around a little bit. I really wanted to make a movie, whether it was the slasher or whatever it was, or whatever movie it would end up being. I wanted to make a movie where the protagonists were not hot 22-year-olds going on spring break on their daddy's dime. I wanted middle-aged people with mortgages, beer guts, kids, problems, wrinkles, you know, 401k, all that stuff. Like I wanted like real normal people that were like represented our age range. And he's like, I'm gonna write it. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever, you know, bullshit, drunken, you know, like, woohoo, we're gonna do this thing. And but no, then he came back, he's like, no, I'm serious. Like, you're a good director and like you want to do this, and I want to get behind the camera. You know, writing is his passion and whatever. And so he kicked it out really fast. I'm like the horror person, he's more of the character driven person. So yeah, so he pretty much wrote it sitting at my kitchen table. And so it has all of the influences that I want to have. But it just has a very good array of well thought out characters with great dialogue, and we're just really excited about it. So we already did casting and we got some really great people. So Ellen Moody, who was in the Embalmers, she was like, hey guys, can I come back and do this movie? I'm like, I must have done something right, because Ellen really liked working with me. But we also got some people who are from around here, may not be like bigger names in the indie scene overall, but definitely in the Midwest indie scene. And that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to do, is keep it here in Indiana, which is where I am, where I'm from. But we have Amanda Winston, who she's actually out of Chicago. She's out of Chicago, but she's from here. Ray Hunt, who just did Curse of the Nun, Kevin Roach, who was in The Bad Man, and Harvest Lake, which are Scott Shermer and Brian Williams. They're both their movies. They're both from Indiana. Leanne Johnson, who just was an Idol girl, and she apparently has. Rob keeps saying, "Wow, Leanne's got more fans than I do." Like, she's incredibly popular around here. So we're filming in Indiana. We don't have tax credits here. Every state around us has tax credits, but I'm adamant that I want this to be a Hoosier movie, and that I want to set an example that we're never going to get tax credits and we're never going to get investors if people don't actually film here, because everybody kind of caves and will just go right over the border to Illinois or Ohio, Kentucky. And because it's really easy when you're like, wow, I can have like a movie that's like 3 times the budget, you know, for the same amount of money that I can put out. So it's going to be low budget, but higher budget than Embalmers, but still low budget. And we're really trying to leverage some of that local stuff. So yeah, we're shooting at a Boy Scout camp. So it's my Sean Cunningham moment, right? Yeah. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Okay. Is there any other thing that you have coming up, movie related wise after this, or is that just the plan, just to get Bombers finished and start in on Tin Roof?
Yeah, and my other big project that I'm acting in, I say I'm not an actress, but one of the first filmmakers I ever interviewed was Steve Rudzinski, because I watched Carousel and I adored that movie. It was my favorite movie of 2019, whatever it would have been ended up being. He was the first person I ever interviewed. And then when time came, he was like, hey, I wrote a script for the sequel. You want to read it? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you want to read for it? There's character I think you'd be good for. So I actually did audition for that. Went through 2 rounds, didn't end up being the character he thought I was going to be, but ended up changing another character to kind of meld my personality. So it's been kind of fun. So it was a male character, they made him female. Yeah, so it's Katrina. She's a Nazi. She's an immortal Nazi. She's as some of her other Nazi cohorts have not, and they are all out to get Duke the unicorn. So that's going to be fun. I leave for that in just a few weeks.
Oh, cool. So, other than that, what are your plans for your podcast?
So in the Mic of Madness, I do that with Jerry, Mr. Venom Cortez, and Brad Thornton. We are chugging along. We did take a little bit of a hiatus. We had some issues here and there, but we are back. So you can find us everywhere you can find podcasts. And actually, we are now on the Dark Discussions Network. We've only had one episode on the network so far, but where you will find other fantastic podcasts like my other new podcast, the Slumber Party Massacre podcast with Lacey Lou, Heather Pallett, and Carly Allison. And it is where we four girls, no offense to Donnie and all of our boyfriends, we decided we were always the token girl on every show. We decided we were going to have our own show, and we have a 3-part show where we do girl talk, where we just discuss a topic that's of relevance. We do pillow fight, which last episode's pillow fight got all the boys talking.
And as one of the ones involved in the conversation, I can agree it's a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, so we battled out bracket style final girls, and it was different and interesting. And then we review a movie. It's like our little our movie of the night. That one's super fun. Again, that's on Dark Discussions. We've only done 2 episodes, but we've gotten a lot of good positive feedback, not just from our little, like all of our podcast and bros, but from other people as well. So
yeah. All right. Other than that, do you have any special message for women wanting to get into the industry?
For anyone that wants to get into the industry, I would say it's especially like the low budget industry. I'm not talking about getting into like Hollywood movies or whatever, but as far as getting into like the indie scene, it's really just about getting out there and meeting people. And I've gone to cons for years, and I will talk to anybody who's a horror person, just making connections and joining groups and that type of thing, and just be yourself. For a very long time, I was not myself. And finally, when I just decided, you know what, who cares? This is who I am. That's when things started happening.
All right. So
people can tell when you're genuine.
Yeah. All right. So before we begin, want to give any other links or shout outs or plugs just for everybody wanting to watch?
Yeah, so you can probably a lot of your listeners probably already follow me on Facebook. You can find all my stuff there. I am also the Not Quite Final Girl on YouTube, where I, as of late, have been doing a lot of drunken commentaries where it's just me and my dog and a bottle of wine, and we watch movies. And I spout off the trivia and my opinions of films that I've seen 1,000 times.
All right. So with that, I guess we'll let you get back to work. And thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Great.